The wind moved across the endless desert of the forgotten world. Golden sand stretched as far as the eye could see. The sun above was pale and weak, giving little warmth, and the sky carried a soft haze that made everything look ancient. A group of human explorers walked carefully across the dunes, their boots sinking into the sand with each step. They had been searching for weeks, guided only by faint signals buried deep within the planet's surface. The leader of the group was a tall man named Ryan, whose voice was calm but firm. He raised a small scanner, watching as the signals on the screen grew stronger. "We are close," he said, his voice steady. Behind him, Mara, the team's historian, adjusted her pack and followed quietly. She was not as loud as the others, but her eyes carried a sense of patience. She believed the desert was hiding something important, something more than sand and stone. The team reached a low ridge where the wind had blown away layers of sand. What they saw made them stop at once. Rising from the earth was a golden surface, wide and smooth, shining in the weak sunlight. It did not look like stone or metal that anyone knew. The material was flawless, as if it had just been placed there that very morning. One of the younger explorers, Darren, stepped closer and brushed his hand over the surface. The golden wall felt warm, even though the air was cold. He pulled his hand back quickly and looked at the others with wide eyes. "This is not natural," he said. Mara moved forward. She knelt beside the wall and studied the markings along the edge. Carvings spread across the surface, winding like rivers of light. Some looked like human patterns she had seen in ancient ruins on Earth. Others were symbols she had never seen before, shapes that seemed to bend her thoughts as she looked at them. "These markings," she whispered, "they are old, older than anything we know. And some of them look human." The alien allies who traveled with the humans stood further back, watching in silence. They were tall and silver-skinned, with sharp, bright eyes. Their people had searched the stars for centuries and had never spoken of such golden structures. One of them, named Scyther, stepped forward and touched the surface with his long fingers. His face tightened. "This material is beyond our science," he said. "It does not decay. It does not change with time. How can such a thing exist here, hidden beneath the sand?" Ryan tapped his scanner again. The signal was stronger now, pulsing as if the wall itself was alive. "This is no ruin," he said firmly. "This is a tomb. And it has waited here a very long time." The team began to clear more sand away. Hours passed, and the golden wall grew taller, wider, stretching far into the ground. Soon, they uncovered what looked like the outline of a doorway, though it had no seams, no hinges, and no visible way to open. It was as if the wall was whole and perfect, and yet a shape of a door was carved into it with precise edges. Mara pressed her hand gently against the center of the door. The surface was smooth, almost soft to the touch. For a moment, she thought she felt a vibration, a faint hum like the echo of a distant song. She pulled her hand back, unsure, and looked at the others. "Did anyone hear that?" she asked. The rest of the team shook their heads. Only Ryan watched her carefully. He trusted her instincts, even when she could not explain them. As night fell, they set up camp beside the golden wall. The pale sun sank below the horizon, and the desert became silent. The humans sat around their lamps, talking in low voices. Darren was full of excitement. "If this tomb is as old as it looks, then we might be standing on the greatest discovery of all time. Who built this? And why would they use gold to cover an entire tomb?" Mara looked into the darkness beyond the firelight. She could not answer him. The symbols on the wall kept running through her mind, shapes that seemed familiar yet strange. She thought of the old stories on Earth, myths of shining temples, gates of heaven, and golden cities lost to time. Could it be that such myths were more than stories? Scyther and his companions stayed silent. They spoke little that night, though their eyes did not leave the wall. In their hearts was a growing unease. The tomb was responding to the humans in ways they did not understand. The desert was quiet, but the humans could not sleep easily. The golden wall stood over them like a giant guardian, untouched by time, shining faintly in the starlight. It seemed alive, as if it was watching them. Mara lay awake, listening to the wind, and wondering if the tomb had been waiting for them. Morning came, and with it came another attempt to open the tomb. Machines were brought forward. The explorers used scanners, cutters, and drills, but nothing worked. The golden surface rejected every tool. Sparks flew and faded, but no mark remained on the flawless wall. At last, Mara stepped forward again. She placed her hand on the center of the door once more. The others watched, tired and doubtful. But this time something happened. The golden surface lit up with a soft glow under her palm. Lines of light spread outward from where she touched, racing across the carvings, filling them with fire. The whole wall began to hum, louder and deeper. Mara pulled her hand away in shock, but the glow did not stop. The golden door shone brighter, as if waking from a long sleep. The ground shook, and the air filled with energy. The alien allies took a step back, their faces tense. The glow lasted only a moment before fading away. The door returned to silence, as if nothing had happened. But everyone knew the truth. Something inside the tomb had felt her touch. Mara looked at her hand, trembling slightly. "It responded to me," she whispered. The aliens exchanged sharp glances, their unease growing into fear. If this tomb recognized humans alone, then it was no ordinary relic. It was something greater, something that could change the balance of the stars. Ryan placed a hand on Mara's shoulder, steadying her. His voice was quiet but strong. "Then we are meant to be here," he said. "This tomb was waiting for us." And so the mystery of the golden tomb deepened. The desert held its silence, but within the walls, something ancient had awakened. The golden tomb stood quiet under the morning light, as if nothing had happened the night before. Yet every explorer felt the change in the air. They had seen the glow, they had heard the hum, and none of them could forget the way the carvings came alive under Mara's hand. Ryan gathered the team near the golden wall. His voice was steady, but his eyes showed a sharp determination. "We tried every tool, every machine, and nothing worked. But when Mara touched the gate, it answered. That means this tomb does not open with force. It opens with recognition." The words carried a heavy weight. The alien allies stood at a distance, their silver faces unreadable. Scyther, the tallest among them, finally spoke. His tone was calm, but the words felt like a warning. "Structures of this kind are older than memory. If it responds only to humans, then it was never meant for others. We must be careful. Some doors are not made to be opened." The humans listened, but curiosity burned stronger than caution. They had traveled across light years to reach this place, guided by faint signals buried in the sand. Now the tomb was here before them, and it had already responded. To turn away felt impossible. Mara stepped forward once again. Her heart beat fast as she looked at the flawless golden gate. It was smooth and silent, as if sleeping. She raised her hand slowly and pressed it against the surface. At once, the carvings lit up again, flowing with soft fire. The gate hummed like a deep song echoing through stone. But this time the glow did not stop at the wall. The light spread out in lines across the sand, forming patterns like stars. Everyone stepped back, watching as the desert floor seemed to map the heavens. The stars above were mirrored on the ground below. Mara stood at the center of the glowing pattern, her face pale with awe. The light faded as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving only the golden gate. Yet now the carvings pulsed gently, as if waiting for something more. Ryan approached cautiously. "It is responding to you alone," he said to Mara. "Perhaps it needs more than just touch." Perhaps it is testing you. Darren, who had been restless with excitement since their arrival, spoke quickly. Then let her try again. If this tomb holds knowledge, we cannot wait forever. What if it closes itself again for another 1,000 years? The aliens did not agree. Scyther stepped closer, his voice sharper now. You do not understand what you awaken. If this tomb was sealed for ages, there was a reason. If it was meant for humans, then it is dangerous for all others. We advise leaving it closed. The humans grew silent. The words carried truth, but they also carried fear. To walk away now would mean abandoning a discovery that might never appear again. Mara herself did not answer at once. She stood staring at the golden gate, the strange symbols burning in her mind. She thought of the old stories she had studied back on Earth. Stories of doors that opened only for the chosen, of treasure hidden by gods, of temples that demanded courage before reward. She wondered if this tomb was the same, a story too vast to belong to one world alone. At last, she shook her head. Her voice was quiet but firm. It called to me. It felt alive. I cannot walk away from that. Ryan nodded. His trust in her was strong. Then we prepare, he said. No one touches the gate except Mara. We will stay ready for whatever comes. The team spent the day studying the carvings more closely. They traced every line and compared them with maps and records. Some of the symbols were almost the same as ancient signs found on Earth, though far older. Others were alien beyond recognition. Yet when placed together, they seemed to form stories. Mara read them carefully, her eyes narrowing as the meaning grew clearer. They speak of guardianship, she explained to the others. They tell of a people who built something that could not die. They speak of a chosen heir who would arrive long after they were gone. And here she pointed at a group of spirals carved deep into the gold. This shows time itself. This tomb was made to wait. The team listened in silence. Even the aliens, who had been cautious, seemed unsettled. The idea of a tomb built to wait for humans was too heavy to ignore. When the second night came, they set up camp again. The desert air was cold, and the stars above burned with quiet fire. Mara could not sleep. She kept her eyes on the golden gate, feeling as if it was watching her in return. Finally, she rose and walked to it, placing her hand gently on the surface once more. The carvings lit up, brighter than ever before. This time, the door itself began to shift. Lines of light spread along the edges, forming the outline of a vast arch. The golden surface rippled like water, though it remained solid. The others rushed to her side, eyes wide. The hum grew stronger, rising into a deep roar. Sand lifted from the ground, swirling in the air as if caught in a storm. The aliens pulled back, their faces filled with alarm. Yet just as the door seemed ready to open, the glow stopped. The gate returned to silence. The lines of light faded into the carvings once more. The desert fell still. Mara stumbled back, her hand trembling. It almost opened, she whispered. Ryan steadied her. Then it can be opened. But it waits for something more. Something only you can give. The aliens said nothing, but their eyes were full of unease. They knew what this meant. The tomb had chosen its key, and that key was human. As dawn touched the desert once again, the golden tomb stood unchanged, its gate flawless and sealed. But within its silent walls, something was awake now. Something had recognized humanity, and it would not rest forever. Mara stood before the gate, her heart steady. She no longer felt like a visitor in the desert. She felt like a part of a story that had begun long before her birth. And somewhere beyond the gate, the rest of that story waited. The golden tomb stood silent as the sun climbed higher into the pale sky. For 2 days the explorers had watched it respond only to Mara, glowing under her touch and humming with hidden power. Yet the gate still refused to open fully. Each time it came alive, it stopped just before revealing what lay inside. The humans grew restless, while the alien allies grew more uneasy with every passing hour. On the third morning Mara woke before the others. She stood before the golden gate, her hand resting lightly on its surface. The carvings felt warm, almost as if they carried a heartbeat. She whispered to herself, "You are waiting for me. But what more do you need?" As the others rose from their tents, Ryan joined her. His face was calm, though his eyes carried a firm resolve. "It has already shown that you are the key," he said. "Perhaps the final step is not strength, but trust. If you are ready, then we all must stand with you." Mara nodded slowly. She felt fear, but stronger than fear was curiosity. She wanted to see what waited behind the golden gate, what secret had survived the ages. The team gathered, standing in silence before the wall. The aliens stood apart, their expressions tense. Scyther shook his head. "You do not know what you will release," he warned. "A tomb of this size does not guard treasure. It guards power. Once it is opened, there may be no turning back." Ryan looked at him firmly. "Then we face what comes. Humanity has always faced what others feared." Without another word, Mara placed her hand on the gate. The carvings lit at once, brighter than ever before. Lines of fire raced across the golden surface, forming circles and spirals. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and a deep sound rose from the heart of the tomb, like the voice of the earth itself. Slowly, the golden surface began to split. A seam of light appeared down the center, widening as the massive gate drew apart. For the first time, the explorers saw the darkness within. Cold air rushed out, carrying the scent of metal and stone untouched for ages. The team held their breath as the gate fully opened. Beyond lay a vast hall that seemed endless, its walls gleaming with golden light. The explorers stepped inside, their boots echoing against the smooth floor. At first, it seemed like an empty chamber. Then they realized the walls were not plain gold. They were mirrors. Perfect mirrors that reflected not only their shapes but something more. Mara gasped as she looked into the nearest wall. At first she saw her own face, but then the image shifted. She saw herself as a child, running through green fields on Earth. She saw herself studying old books in a quiet library, her hands covered with dust. She saw herself standing here, now, with the golden light all around her. She stepped back, her heart racing. These walls, they show more than reflections. They show memory. Darren moved closer to another wall. He laughed nervously as he saw his own past appear before him. He saw the day he left Earth, waving goodbye to his family. He saw his failures, his mistakes, moments he had hoped to forget. His smile faded as the images grew sharper. "It knows everything," he whispered. The other humans felt the same shock. Every wall reflected not just their faces, but their lives. Choices made, paths taken, regrets carried. The golden chamber seemed to read their very souls. The aliens stepped forward as well, but when they looked into the walls, their faces darkened. Nothing appeared. The mirrors showed only empty reflections of their bodies, no memories, no stories. They turned to the humans with unease in their eyes. Scyther spoke in a low voice. "It recognizes only you. To it, we do not exist." This truth settled heavily over the group. The tomb was built for humans, and only humans. Mara walked further down the hall. Each wall she passed showed more of her life, more of her hidden fears. She saw the loneliness she carried, the quiet doubt that she had always been too small for great things. Yet the walls did not show her failures to shame her. They showed them with care, as if saying, "This too is part of you." She turned to Ryan. His reflection showed battles he had fought, choices that had cost him dearly. Yet he stood tall, his expression steady. "This chamber is a test," he said. It wants us to see ourselves, to know ourselves. Only then can we go deeper. The team moved together, walking slowly through the chamber of mirrors. Some cried softly at the memories they had long buried. Others grew quiet, lost in thought. But none turned away. Each human faced the truth of their own life. At last they reached the far end of the hall, where a second gate stood. This one was smaller but carved with the same spirals and stars. Above it was a single symbol glowing faintly. Mara studied it carefully. She could not read the language, but she felt the meaning in her heart. It says, "Those who know themselves may pass." The group fell into silence. The test was not of strength, not of weapons, but of the heart. Humanity had been chosen not for power, but for the courage to face their own truth. Mara placed her hand on the second gate. For a moment nothing happened. Then the mirrors around them flared with golden light. All the memories shown on the walls merged into a great river of images, flowing together as one. It was as if the tomb itself was gathering the story of humanity, weaving it into something greater. The second gate opened slowly, revealing another passage beyond. A faint glow shone from deeper within, calling them forward. The humans stood in awe. The aliens remained silent, their unease now mixed with wonder. Ryan looked at Mara and gave a single nod. "We go on," he said. Together they stepped into the deeper passage, leaving behind the chamber of mirrors. Yet the memories they had seen remained in their hearts. Each of them now carried not just their own past, but the weight of knowing they were part of something far greater. The tomb had judged them, and for now, it had allowed them to pass. The new passage was narrower than the great chamber of mirrors. Its golden walls did not shine with reflection but glowed softly, as though light came from deep inside the metal itself. The explorers walked in silence, their footsteps echoing in the stillness. The air was cool, yet it carried a strange energy that made their skin tingle. Mara walked at the front beside Ryan. She felt the pull of the tomb growing stronger with every step. It was as if the place was guiding her forward, whispering without words. Behind her, Darren whispered in awe, "This tomb feels alive." His voice echoed, then faded into the silence. The passage led them into a wide chamber. The ceiling arched high above, glowing with the same golden light. At the center stood a raised platform, and upon it shimmered a figure made of light. The explorers froze. None of them had ever seen such a being. It was tall, shaped roughly like a human, but its body was not flesh. It was made of shining strands, glowing as if woven from sunlight. Its face had no clear features, yet it radiated presence. The humans stood in awe. The alien allies stepped back, their unease turning to fear. Scyther whispered, "This is no machine. This is a guardian." The being raised its head and turned toward Mara. No sound came from its mouth, yet images burst into her mind. She saw stars being born, galaxies spinning, civilizations rising and falling like waves. She saw ancient beings, taller than humans, building worlds of gold and light. Then she saw them fade, leaving only ruins and silence. Her breath caught as one last image burned in her mind. The ancient beings stood around a golden tomb, their hands raised in farewell. Above them shone a blue planet, Earth, glowing in the dark sky. The meaning was clear. They had built this place for humanity. Mara stumbled back, her heart racing. The Guardian's light shifted, sending the same visions into the minds of the other humans. Each of them gasped as the truth filled their thoughts. The tomb had not been made by strangers alone. It had been made for them, for their kind, across uncounted ages of time. The aliens, however, received nothing. They stood in silence, watching the humans react with shock and awe. To them, the Guardian was silent, as if they did not exist at all. Ryan steadied his breathing and stepped forward. His voice was firm but respectful. "Guardian, why us? Why humans?" The being of light did not answer with words. Instead, more visions filled the minds of the humans. They saw their own history, fire lit in caves, ships crossing oceans, cities rising from stone. They saw wars and peace, failure and triumph, weakness and courage. They saw small hands holding tools, eyes staring at the stars with endless wonder. The message was simple. Humanity had been chosen because they endured. They failed, yet they tried again. They broke, yet they rebuilt. They dreamed even in the darkest night. The tomb was meant for a people who would not give up, who could carry forward the memory of those who came before. Mara felt tears in her eyes. She had studied old myths all her life, searching for hidden truths, but she had never imagined something so vast. Humanity was not just one species among many. They were heirs to a forgotten legacy. Darren spoke in a trembling voice. So all this, it belongs to us. The Guardian's light pulsed brighter, as if in answer. The humans felt warmth spread through their hearts, like approval. The aliens could not remain silent. Scyther stepped forward, his voice sharp with frustration. Why do you ignore us? We have walked the stars far longer than these humans. We have knowledge, we have strength. Why do you give nothing to us? The Guardian turned toward him, yet gave no reply. Its light did not reach the aliens, nor did any visions enter their minds. To the tomb, they were shadows without meaning. The silence cut deeper than words. Scyther's expression darkened. He stepped back, but his eyes never left the humans. There was a growing fear there, but also something colder. Meanwhile, the Guardian raised its arms, and the chamber changed. The golden walls rippled like water, and suddenly the explorers stood within a storm of images. They saw vast machines building worlds, rivers of stars being charted, and knowledge flowing like endless streams. They saw warnings too, shadows spreading across galaxies, forces that had destroyed the builders of the tomb. The Guardian lowered its arms, and the images faded. The chamber grew still once more. Mara felt the weight of what she had seen. The tomb held more than history. It held knowledge that could shape the future, knowledge that could protect or destroy. Ryan placed a steady hand on her shoulder. This is what we came for, he said. The tomb is telling us we must carry this forward. The Guardian's light dimmed slightly, as if nodding in agreement. Then, without sound, it dissolved into 1,000 sparks, rising like fireflies before fading into the golden ceiling. The chamber fell silent again. The humans stood together, their hearts heavy with awe. They had been shown visions of the past and entrusted with the future. The aliens stood apart, their silence sharp. The message was clear, the tomb did not belong to them. Mara looked at the golden walls, her voice quiet but steady. It has chosen us. And we must decide how to carry what it has given. The weight of her words filled the chamber. The gate to the next passage waited before them, glowing faintly, calling them deeper. The humans knew the journey was far from over. The tomb had only begun to reveal its secrets. Ryan looked at his team, then at the path ahead. We move forward, he said firmly. Whatever trials await, we face them as one. With that, the humans stepped toward the glowing gate, their hearts full of both fear and determination. Behind them, the aliens followed, silent and uneasy. The Guardian was gone, but its presence lingered like a shadow of light. The humans now carried its message, a truth that would shape their destiny. The Golden Tomb had spoken, and humanity had been chosen. The gate opened with a deep sound that shook the chamber. Beyond it stretched a corridor lined with golden walls that glowed like a path of fire. The explorers stepped forward carefully, their hearts heavy with the memory of the Guardian. Each step felt like entering deeper into the heart of a mystery that had been waiting for them since the beginning of time. Mara led the way, her eyes fixed on the path. She felt the tomb guiding her, as though it had chosen her long before she was born. Behind her, Ryan walked with steady strength, while Darren moved nervously, glancing at the glowing walls. The aliens followed at a distance, their unease growing with every step. The corridor ended in a vast chamber unlike the others. It was a maze, its walls shifting and sliding as if alive. Golden panels moved silently, creating new paths and closing old ones. The air carried a hum, and the sound of stone grinding against stone echoed in every direction. The humans stopped, staring in awe and fear. The maze stretched endlessly, its passages twisting like rivers of gold. "It changes," Darren whispered. "There is no fixed path." Ryan studied the moving walls with sharp eyes. "This is a test," he said firmly. "The tomb has judged us. Now it will see if we are worthy to continue." As if answering his words, the walls around them shifted, sealing the way back. They were trapped inside the golden maze. Mara pressed her hand against one of the walls. It was warm, and beneath her touch she felt the faint pulse of energy. Suddenly, an image flashed in her mind. She saw herself standing at a crossroad, choosing to leave her family for the path of knowledge. She saw the regret of distance and the strength of her choice. Then the vision faded. She stepped back, her breath quick. "The maze is not only stone," she said. "It shows us our choices. It tests how we face them." The humans exchanged uneasy looks. The aliens stood apart, watching silently, though their eyes betrayed both fear and anger. The tomb continued to ignore them, as if they were shadows drifting through a story that was not theirs. The group moved forward. At each turn, the walls revealed visions to the humans. Darren saw his failures, times when he had run from fear instead of facing it. He trembled but did not turn away. Ryan saw battles from his past, choices that had cost lives but saved others. His face was hard, but he walked forward without hesitation. Mara saw her doubts, her loneliness, her quiet belief that she was too small to matter. Yet she pressed on, her steps growing steadier. The maze grew more difficult. The path split again and again, and the walls shifted faster. At times they were separated, forced to face their visions alone. Each human struggled, but none gave up. They called to each other across the golden halls, their voices carrying courage when strength faltered. Hours passed, though inside the maze time felt strange. The walls glowed without change, and the air remained cool. It was as if the tomb was outside the flow of normal time. At last the group reached a wide chamber at the center of the maze. Here the walls rose higher, and in the middle stood a golden platform. On it lay a sphere glowing softly, pulsing with light like a beating heart. The humans gathered around it, their faces filled with wonder. Mara stepped forward, feeling the pull of the sphere. But as she reached for it, the chamber trembled. The golden walls began to shift again, but this time they did not form paths. They rose into shapes, figures of light and gold that moved like living statues. Each one carried no weapon, yet their presence was heavy and powerful. They stood blocking the humans, their glowing eyes fixed on them. "The trial is not finished," Ryan said, his voice calm but firm. "We must prove ourselves." The statues moved forward. The humans braced themselves, but they soon realized the figures did not strike. Instead, they raised their hands, and visions filled the chamber once more. Mara saw herself standing before the glowing sphere. In one vision she reached for it, and knowledge poured into her mind, but the others fell behind, lost to the shifting maze. In another vision she stepped back, leaving the sphere untouched, and her friends survived but the tomb sealed forever. Her heart pounded. She understood now. The final trial was not strength but choice. The tomb demanded sacrifice. The others faced their own visions. Darren saw the chance to save his family at the cost of the mission. Ryan saw himself choosing between his team and the greater purpose. Each vision struck deep, pulling at their hearts. The statues stood waiting, their golden forms silent. Mara looked at her friends. She thought of their journey, of the trust they had given her, of the way they had faced the maze together. Slowly she lowered her hand. "I will not choose knowledge over life," she said. "We must survive together, or we have already failed." Her words echoed in the chamber. The statues paused. Then the golden light in their eyes softened. One by one they lowered their hands and stepped aside. The glowing sphere pulsed brighter, as if answering her choice. The chamber grew still, and the hum of the maze faded. The humans stood together, breathing hard but filled with relief. They had faced the trial of time, not through power, but through unity and trust. Ryan placed a steady hand on Mara's shoulder. His voice was quiet but firm. "You chose well. That is why it called to you." The aliens remained silent, their faces cold. They had seen the tomb ignore them once more, granting its favor only to the humans. Their unease was now mixed with bitterness. The chamber walls shifted again, but this time they did not close. A new passage opened beyond the platform, glowing with soft golden light. The way forward was clear. Mara looked once more at the glowing sphere. It had tested her, but it had not punished her choice. Instead, it seemed to wait, holding its secrets for another time. She turned away, her steps steady. Together, the humans moved toward the next passage. The trial of time was behind them, but the weight of its lesson remained in their hearts. They now understood that the tomb demanded more than curiosity. It demanded wisdom, unity, and sacrifice. The golden tomb had tested humanity, and humanity had endured. The new passage stretched forward like a golden river. Its walls glowed with a steady light, guiding the explorers deeper into the tomb. The air felt different here, heavier yet full of energy, as though the tomb itself was breathing. Each step echoed softly, as if the walls were listening. Mara walked at the front. She no longer felt only fear. She felt purpose. The tomb had tested them with memories and choices, and they had endured. Now something greater waited ahead. Behind her, Ryan's steady presence gave strength to the others. Darren walked with wide eyes, unable to hide his wonder. The alien allies followed in silence, their expressions cold. The passage ended in a massive chamber, larger than any they had seen before. Its walls rose high into a dome that shone like the inside of a sun. At the center of the chamber stood a great pedestal, and on it rested a golden sphere. The sphere pulsed with a rhythm like a heartbeat, filling the air with waves of light. The humans froze in awe. The glow from the sphere lit their faces, and for a moment none of them spoke. Then Mara stepped closer, drawn to it as if it called her by name. "This is the heart of the tomb," she whispered. Ryan nodded slowly. "It is what the trials were leading us to." The aliens exchanged uneasy looks. Scyther narrowed his eyes. "This sphere is no treasure. It is power. If the tomb has chosen to give it to you, then it changes everything." His voice carried both fear and warning. Mara placed her hand gently on the sphere. At once the chamber filled with light. Visions poured into her mind, flooding her with knowledge. She saw maps of star systems, lines of travel that stretched across galaxies. She saw structures larger than worlds, machines that could shape suns. She saw histories of civilizations long gone, their voices recorded in the sphere. She gasped and nearly pulled away, but the sphere was not cruel. The knowledge came not as pain but as understanding. It was as though the ancient builders had poured their memory into the sphere, waiting for human hands to awaken it. The light spread to the other humans as well. Ryan saw vast strategies of survival, warnings of dangers that had ended empires. Darren saw sciences and tools far beyond their time. Each human received a part of the legacy, a fragment of knowledge that together formed a whole. The aliens stood apart, watching in silence. They received nothing. The sphere gave them no vision, no gift. To it, they were unseen. When the light faded, Mara staggered back, her heart racing. She looked at her companions, their faces shining with the same awe she felt. "It is a library," she said softly. "A library of a people who lived before memory, a people who left this tomb so their knowledge would not die. They waited for us to find it. They chose humanity to carry it forward." Ryan's voice was firm. "Then we are their heirs." Darren's eyes were wide, his voice trembling with excitement. "Do you understand what this means? This knowledge could change everything. We could map the stars. We could build cities across worlds. Humanity could rise higher than ever before." The aliens stepped closer, their faces hard. Scyther spoke with sharp words. "And what of us? We traveled with you, we shared this path, yet the tomb gives us nothing. If you take this knowledge for yourselves, you will rise while others fall behind. That will bring war." Ryan met his gaze calmly. "We did not ask for this. The tomb gave it to us. Perhaps it was not chance but design." Scyther's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing more. The silence between humans and aliens grew heavy. The sphere pulsed once more, and new images filled the chamber. The explorers saw warnings of shadows that spread across galaxies, vast forces that devoured worlds and silenced stars. They saw that the builders of the tomb had faced this darkness and had fallen to it. The last act of their people had been to create this place, this golden tomb, to protect their knowledge until another race could rise and continue the struggle. Mara's voice shook as she spoke. "The tomb is not just a gift. It is a responsibility. The builders trusted us to carry their fight. The dangers that destroyed them still wait in the dark." The humans stood in silence, the weight of that truth pressing upon them. They had dreamed of treasure and discovery, but what they had found was far greater. It was a burden that could shape the fate of all worlds. Ryan straightened, his voice steady. "Then we will carry it. Humanity has been chosen not to rule, but to endure. If there are shadows waiting, then we will face them as those before us did." The golden sphere dimmed, as if satisfied. The chamber grew still, the pulsing light settling into a calm rhythm. The aliens turned away, their silence sharp. They had seen their place in the tomb's design, and it was outside the circle. That truth would not be forgotten. Mara touched the sphere once more. This time it did not flood her mind with visions. Instead, it released a final image into the chamber, a map of the stars, with one path glowing brighter than the rest. It was a direction, a call towards something greater. The humans stared at it with awe. The tomb was not finished. This was only the beginning of the path. The vision faded, and the chamber grew silent again. The sphere rested calmly, its light soft. It had given its legacy, and now it waited. Mara stepped back, her voice firm though her heart trembled. "We have been chosen. The tomb trusted us with its memory. Now it is up to us to decide what we will do with it." Ryan looked at his team, then at the stars that shone faintly through cracks in the golden dome. "We carry it forward," he said. "Not for power, but for survival. This knowledge belongs to humanity, and through it, we will protect the future." The explorers stood in silence, each feeling the weight of the choice before them. The golden tomb had given them more than they had dreamed. It had given them a destiny. The chamber of the golden tomb grew silent after the visions faded. The glowing sphere rested calmly on the pedestal, as though it had given all it could. The explorers stood in awe, their hearts heavy with the weight of knowledge. For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence was not empty. It was full of meaning. Mara was the first to step forward. Her eyes lingered on the golden sphere, but she did not touch it again. She had seen enough to know that its gift was real and that it was meant for them alone. She turned to face her companions. "This is not the end," she said. "It is the beginning. The tomb has given us a path, and now we must decide whether to walk it." Ryan's voice was steady, though his heart was racing. "We will walk it. Humanity cannot turn away from this. The builders of the tomb trusted us. We cannot betray that trust. Darren's hands shook as he tried to put into words what he felt. It is more than trust. They passed their dream to us. They wanted us to continue where they failed. They wanted us to rise where they fell. The aliens stood apart, watching with silent faces. Their leader, Scyther, crossed his arms. His voice was low but sharp. You speak as though you alone carry the weight of destiny. But what if this destiny brings ruin? What if the shadows that destroyed the builders come for you, and through you, for all of us? Mara did not look away. Then we will face them. We are not blind to the danger. But humanity has always survived by facing danger. We will not stop now. The words filled the chamber with quiet strength. Even the aliens could not deny the fire that burned in the humans' eyes. The golden dome above shimmered, as though agreeing with them. Then the light began to fade. Slowly, the glow of the chamber dimmed, and the paths behind them closed like a dream returning to sleep. The tomb was sealing itself, its duty complete. The explorers understood. They had taken what they needed. The tomb no longer had reason to stay awake. The group left the chamber, their footsteps echoing across the golden floor. The passage behind them faded into shadow, as if time itself was folding the tomb away. By the time they reached the outer gate, only silence remained. The tomb had returned to rest, hidden once more from the eyes of the galaxy. Outside, the night sky spread wide, full of stars. The explorers stood in the cool air, breathing deeply. They felt changed, not just in their minds but in their souls. The tomb had given them knowledge, and with it a burden that stretched beyond their lives. Ryan lifted his gaze to the stars. The tomb gave us a map. A direction. Somewhere out there lies the next step. Mara nodded. It showed us not just where to go, but why. We carry the memory of a fallen people. We carry their warning. The shadows they feared still wait in the dark. If we turn away, we invite the same end. Darren spoke with quiet determination. Then we must prepare. We must share what we have learned with our people. Humanity must be ready, or all of this will be wasted. The aliens exchanged uneasy glances. Scyther stepped forward, his voice cool. If you rise with this knowledge, the balance of the galaxy will break. Other races will not accept it. They will fear you. Ryan looked at him calmly. Then let them fear. We do not rise to rule them. We rise because the tomb chose us. We rise because the future needs us. The words carried a strength that could not be denied. Even Scyther, with all his doubt, could not answer. He turned away in silence. The humans walked toward their ship. Each step felt heavy, but it was the weight of purpose. They had gone into the tomb as seekers of treasure. They left as guardians of a legacy. As the ship lifted into the sky, the golden tomb below grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared into the land. No trace of it remained, as though it had never been there. But in their hearts, the explorers carried its memory. The journey back through the stars was filled with silence. Each human was lost in thought, replaying the visions they had seen. Mara remembered the maps of galaxies, the endless pathways waiting to be walked. Ryan remembered the warnings, the choices of survival. Darren remembered the tools of creation, the inventions that could lift their people to greatness. Together, they held a puzzle that only humanity could solve. When they returned to their world, they stood before their leaders and told their story. Many doubted, many feared, but when the explorers shared even a fraction of the tomb's gift, doubt turned to belief. The people of Earth understood that they stood on the edge of a new era. There were voices that called for power, voices that called for control. Yet there were also voices that called for unity, for purpose. The explorers stood among them, guiding the path. They had learned in the tomb that strength without truth was nothing, and greed without wisdom was ruin. Under the light of a new dawn, humanity began to change. Ships were built to travel farther than ever before. Tools were crafted that healed, that grew, that lifted entire cities into the sky. But above all, there was a new fire in the human spirit. It was the fire of purpose, the fire of those who knew they had been chosen not by chance, but by destiny. Years passed, and the map of the tomb became the guide of explorers. The glowing path revealed in the chamber led them into the unknown. Beyond familiar stars, beyond the reach of old maps, humanity moved forward. And as they traveled, they remembered the shadows. They did not forget the warning. For every step forward, they prepared for the day when darkness would rise again. The golden tomb had defied time. It had waited across ages for hands strong enough to carry its gift. Now that gift lived in humanity. It lived in their ships, their cities, their dreams. It lived in the courage of explorers who looked at the stars not with fear, but with hope. One night, as Mara stood on the deck of a great ship, she looked out at the sea of stars. Her voice was quiet, but it carried the strength of all she had seen. "We are the children of Earth," she said. "But now we are also the heirs of the golden tomb. We will not hide from the shadows. We will not bow to fear. We will carry the memory of those who came before us, and through us, their story will live forever." Ryan stood beside her, his eyes fixed on the glowing path ahead. "The tomb defied time," he said. "Now so will we." And with that, the ship turned toward the unknown, its engines burning bright against the darkness. Humanity's journey had only begun. The golden tomb was behind them, but its legacy walked with them into the endless stars.